The San Francisco 49ers got bad news and good news today in the fallout, and I do mean fallout, a big fallout from the loss, the embarrassing loss to the Los Angeles Rams. I don't even want to talk about that, but we got in today's video good news, bad news, Brock Purdy, Jacob Cowing, so much more injury updates. If you're new here, I'm Nate. Love talking about the 49ers. Please consider a like and sub. I would appreciate it. The headline is no surprise to you. The San Francisco 49ers fell to the LA Rams yesterday, and the key storylines, unfortunately, include special teams blunders, defensive mishaps, offensive boo-boos, whatever you want to call it. All three phases had their issues, and when you mess up in every phase of a game multiple times, you don't deserve to win. But that doesn't mean that it was all bad, so I'm here to tell you there is some good news. There was some bad news, especially an injury update, so I've got that coming to you in a minute. But first, let me know where you're at, faithful, with the highest priority problem that needs to be solved right now. Comment below, what is the highest priority problem? And if you say Coach Shanahan, I won't be surprised because you've said it before when I've asked similar questions. What is the highest priority issue for this football team? I don't like the Kyle Shanahan take personally because it's a long-term, that's a long-term decision. I'm not in that. I still think there's plenty of miles left on the tires for that, for the coaching staff. Is there question around the defensive side of the ball? Yeah, for sure. There's definitely questions about that. And that's a fair point. But let me know what you think. Is it a specific unit group that needs to be solved first? That the 49ers need to be aiming at what they're doing wrong on the defensive line, or trying to figure out what the heck they were doing in the secondary with some of those deep plays? What in the world they were doing, letting guys like Devondre Campbell one-on-one in situations where he was definitely not prepared to handle it? I'm not sure. Wherever you want to start, that's your call. If you want to say, bring in a new special teams coordinator, I hear you. Let me know what you think in the comments. I look forward to seeing you there. The injury updates, to give you a quick one. Javon Hargrave is out. If you missed that, that just happened about an hour and a half ago. Probably the rest of the regular season is what it looks like, due to a surgery to his partially torn tricep. I know, that's a lot of words. Brock Purdy is day-to-day, but it looks like it's just soreness related. Kalia Davis is hopefully returning soon from IR. Now, technically, if my math's correct, he still can't return until after this week's game against the Patriots, because I believe he was designated prior to the start of the season, because it was after that. He had a really good preseason game. It was after that. But anyway, Dre Greenlaw is looking to return midseason. That sounds pretty normal to me. I guess the only question would be, like, for a long time we were like, could be week 9, could be week 10, could be week 11. I guess that still counts as midseason. So I don't know. We'll see what that looks like. No specific dates on him yet. But what did we learn yesterday? We learned a lot. A lot more than we wanted to learn. Oh, one more injury update. Forgot to say, this guy, Christian McCaffrey. I just saw my jersey in my own screen, and I was like, oh yeah, I got to talk about it. Christian McCaffrey is traveling to Germany, to get a specialist support on the tendonitis issue that he's dealing with. So we'll see what comes out of that. All right. One of the bad things that we learned yesterday had to do, unfortunately, with Ronnie Bell. And if there's an area you want to be critical of Kyle Shanahan, his decision to play Ronnie Bell might be a fair one, because that did not go very well. The 49ers had 6 drops yesterday. Bell was 2 of them. One of them was really, really critical, and that was a game-winning catch. Had he made it, pretty much, basically, would have made that field goal a much easier make. Not a guarantee, but a much easier make. And Jacob Cowing was really nowhere to be seen in the passing game, which was really weird. And a lot of people thought he was going to be more involved. There was kind of some hinting that he would be more involved, and then there was really nothing. And after what he did in the preseason, which I know is still preseason, but what he did in the preseason would suggest that, I don't know, if you look at Ronnie Bell's preseason and Jacob Cowing's only 2 games of preseason, because he was out the first game with that ankle injury, then he was there week 2 and week 3 of preseason, looking really good in both of them. What are we waiting for, guys? What are we waiting for? I don't understand. Like, why aren't we throwing him out there, getting him in those? getting him some runs in, not runs, you know what I mean, some routes in. I had to go back because I was like, I remember distinctly lots of players, especially Deebo Samuel, talking about how good and how difficult it was to handle Jacob Cowing. And we watched young and no-name players for the LA Rams carve us up in several occasions. So, yeah, could there have been a rookie out there that could have made a difference for the 49ers? Absolutely. His name is Jacob Cowing. So let's just go back to what Lenore said after that game against the Saints. He was crazy today. I ain't going to lie. He's so fast, man, on that jet sweep. That was crazy. He got the ball and everybody had an angle, and he was just outrunning their angles. Speed. Keep going. I was so shocked because I haven't seen him on a jet sweep. We did the walkthrough, but I didn't really see it coming together, yada, yada. Okay, remember he had that 38-yard bomb from Josh Dobbs to the corner or to the side of the field, and just like how he managed to get a catch out of that was absolutely insane. Yeah, nothing like that we saw out of Ronnie Bell during preseason or since. I don't even know how he tracked it, Lenore said. I thought it was going all the way out, and he came down with it. He was amazing tonight, put it together. Trent Taylor talked about him, said he played multiple positions today, which as a rookie is never easy because he was also out there in punt returns because it's hard just to learn one position as a rookie. I think he's doing a really good job. And then this was the quote we talked about at the time when it first happened. This is what Deebo Lenore said. This is like the highest kind of praise a defensive back could give to a wide receiver. I would say he's one of the most important covers. Just because he's so fast and he's so small, and so it's kind of hard to really touch him. You have to be really strategic with him. You can't just line up and open the gate on him. He's too fast for that. He can be a serious weapon for sure, and we saw several people kind of comment on this, and we saw Brian Baldinger talking about it. I mean, there were a lot of guys out there that were talking about this particular aspect about Jacob Cowing and his ability to turn corners and to get past guys. And because of his size and because of his speed, it makes him a very difficult guy to time your defensive play against, right? It's hard to judge where he's going to be. So all that being said, I think this is a fair criticism you could have of Kyle, of the personnel that were out on the field, and whatever presuppositions or predispositions, Kyle Shanahan's taking into the game, whether it's, how cerebral the player is or how good of a blocker he is or whatever, they dialed up a situation that was absolutely perfect for Ronnie Bell. And he looked so uncomfortable. You guys all know the pass. You all know the pass. It's a dot. It's between his hands. If he doesn't catch the ball, it's hitting him like right in the chin area. It's like absolutely perfect. And he jumps in the air and kicks his legs up like he's like afraid to get hit maybe. And, if you've never, been hit, sometimes if you leave your feet, if you leave your feet in the air, then it kind of takes some of the impact out of the hit with your lower extremities. So you don't like pop your knee or something like that, right? It's a scare tactic. It's something that you do when you're scared. That rephrase. It's something you do when you're scared, right? You're frightened. You're operating out of fear. And that is not what we see out of guys like Juwan Jennings who go out there day in and day out and just absolutely ball. And they put their body on the line and you respect them for it. And unfortunately for Ronnie Bell, that was not a good showing for him. And I think it would have been great. And, obviously I don't see what happens in practice, and so I can only go based off of what we see on Sundays. And I heard he had a great practice week. I believe Kyle Shanahan said that after the game, whatever. Okay, that's fine. But at the end of the day, would have loved to see a guy like Jacob Cowing out there just giving the 49ers something different in the passing game in terms of weapons. Would he have caught that ball? No, I don't know. Nobody knows who, but every wide receiver on the roster should have caught that ball. Every wide receiver on the practice squad, every single practice squad in the National Football League should have caught that ball. So I also am like, I don't know. Apparently it would have increased the chances at least, at least it would have done that. That's the bad news. And there's more bad news with that, of course. A lot of other things that didn't go very well in this game. But let's talk about some good news for a minute here. So let's start with Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy went out there without all of his weapons. And my goodness, my word, Brock Purdy went out there and just, he was incredible. It was not his best game ever, but it was up there for sure in like his top 10, 5 game, maybe top 5, maybe not quite top 5, but top 10 games. And to do it with the weapons that he had available, making Juwan Jennings is a great guy. He's not making Juwan Jennings great, but he's given Juwan Jennings every opportunity in the world to continue to be great. 22 for 30 with 6 drops puts the math in my mind, which, of course, drops happen on every team. I'm not trying to say you don't ever factor those in the stat line. They're part of the stats, just like tipped balls that turn interceptions still count as interceptions, okay? But Brock Purdy would have been 28 for 30 had those 6 drops not happened, right? In a perfect world, okay? In a vacuum. But, 22 for 30 is not totally fair to what he did. 292 yards is not even totally fair for what he did out there. His 3 TDs, fantastic, all to Juwan Jennings. That was awesome. QB rating of 137. Excuse me, dry throat. He 4 pressures, 1 sack. Okay, so Brock Purdy balled out, did an incredible job. He was scrambling. He was doing all sorts of crazy stuff. Some of those scrambles I was a little nervous about because you don't want to see guys getting too much happy feet in there. But how do you blame the guy with some of the plays that Colton McKivitz gave up? I mean, my word. Like plays where you're like, Colton McKivitz gets pushed back like genuinely 4 yards. Like he's already almost hitting Brock Purdy, and he's making his second contact with the defensive lineman. Like, this is not good. Not a good situation at all. Some more positives on the Brock Purdy because it's hard for me to not go negative right now because of what we just happened. But not to pile on, but imagine Brock Purdy's rating and raw numbers had Ronnie Bell held onto the perfect deep pass. Even without it, Purdy posted MVP-level efficiency without CMC, Deebo, and Kittle. The national media has a track record of downplaying how good Purdy has been. Will be interesting to see if or how that keeps up. And you know what the unfortunate thing is, guys? What really, really stinks, and this is why probably, to some extent, Juwan Jennings was so upset after the game. This takes away from what Brock Purdy did. And it shouldn't. It really shouldn't. It should have no bearing on how great Brock Purdy played without all the weapons. But the storyline today is not about how great Brock Purdy did without all of his weapons. And it should have been. It really should have been. It should have been about Juwan Jennings. It should have been about Brock Purdy. It should have been about J.P. Mason. The guys going out there and making it happen, and it wasn't about that because they lost. That's what really hurts. That's what really hurts. The defense and the special teams really let us down. And had either of the two of those phases of the game been good and not made those major mistakes, then this really would have been a game where everybody's talking about how good Brock Purdy was. And that's a shame because of all the crud that he gets constantly from the national media. No one's talking about how good Brock Purdy was right now, which is so unfortunate. All right, 3 times in 49ers history as a quarterback completed 70+% of his passes and thrown 3 touchdowns in a loss. Joe Montana, Steve Young, and Brock Purdy. Not complaining about the company that he's in there. Speaking of companies, he just moved up to be tied with Kurt Warner, and he's now behind only. He's tied with Kurt Warner and behind Patrick Mahomes in terms of what was that stat from last week? 25. In his first 25 games, having a higher than 100 rating, or 100 rating or higher. So congrats to Brock Purdy on that. Let's go a little deeper for a second here, because we can't talk about how good Brock Purdy was and not mention how we lost that game. Okay, third down efficiency was still not amazing, but it was definitely improved. I think it was 3 last week. 3 third downs converted or something like that. So it was really bad. But this is a better situation, but still giving up almost 50% to the Rams, which was not great. Fourth downs, giving up 2 of those. Not good either. One of those being that big punt fake. Not a good situation there. Now, I want you to notice something here. So both teams get 9 drives. So you have even touches on the ball. And 49ers have 425 total yards to their 296 yards. This is what's killing me. This happened last week too, where the 49ers are doing things that are in total should amount to winning games. Time of possession. They destroy the time of possession battle, right? 33 minutes to 26. We saw this again last week. How do we win the time of possession battle that well and lose the game 27 to 24? Can't have it. This stat too blew me away. 111 in yards in penalties, 2 of those making up almost half of those, by the way, 2 of those penalties. Isaac Yadam's the one that sticks out in my mind. That was a really bad one. Maybe Devondre Campbell's penalty was the other one. But I mean, you can't give up over 100 yards in penalties. You can't do that and expect to win games. And I thought that the Rams were really bad with their penalties. Really bad timing with their penalties. I mean, keeping us alive at times, and we out-penaltied them. That's not a good situation in terms of yardage. Rushing the ball and passing the ball, so we destroyed them in the passing game, 100 yards more. And then in the rushing game, we were more than them by 40 yards as well. A couple of those thanks to Brock Purdy. Man, it is tough to take, guys. This was a tough one to take. And you have to let me know what you think needs to be fixed first. I think a game like this, when you control the game so much, you have to look at special teams and you have to look at the defense especially. How we give up 27 points in 26 minutes of play, that's not a good situation. For our offense to survive as well as it did without so many weapons, not acceptable. Not acceptable. And that's a real shame. To be up by 10 going into the fourth quarter. Can't lose this game. So this is one of those games that, we're probably going to be talking about in how many games we played? 3 games. In 14 weeks? 13 weeks? We're going to be talking about this game. This is one of those games we're going to be looking back and we're like, oh, man, our situation would be looking a lot better had we won that game against the Rams. That's that game that we really want that one back. The Minnesota game, you can kind of shake off a little bit because of the situation. The Rams game is one of those ones that you really look at yourselves in the mirror and every single point of blame is on you. You can't look at the Rams and be like, well, they just did that amazing thing. They just outplayed. Last week, we got outplayed. We got outcoached. This week, this was on us. We let them win that game. We handed them that win, and that's where it doesn't feel so good. My goodness. One more bad thing while we're on the bad things, while we're talking about the negative. Remember I was saying we were ending with good news? We're going to end with good news still, but my goodness. Devondre Campbell, 3 catches on 3 targets for 53 yards and a pass interference. Isaac Yadam, 5 catches on 5 targets for 52 yards. And a pass interference as well. Not a good situation. Not really sure what the 49ers are going to do differently on defense, but it seems that base is not going to be good enough. That's for sure. The base that we're running is not going to be good enough. New England Patriots are coming to town in 6 days, and we better look different. We better be showing something different on the defensive side of the ball because we have incredible talent. I refuse. Yes, okay, fine. Maybe we don't have the best roster in football. I'll admit that maybe I was wrong on that one, but I'm not going to go any further than that. I'm not going to say this is not a talented football team. This is an incredibly talented football team. They're talented for a reason. Yes, we really miss Dre Greenlaw right now. We really miss that presence in the middle of the field. But whatever the case, either way, this is a really talented football team that the right amount of coaching can get this sorted out, hopefully. It's going to take some time, though. It's not going to happen overnight. The Patriots is a good opportunity for us to get it. I want to end with a reminder of what we went into that game saying, and this is where that good news comes in. We went into the game saying this is an opportunity for Brock Purdy. This is an opportunity for Brandon Aiyuk, who did okay, not amazing. He's making strides, I guess, toward his old self, but not what we expected. But you're okay with it because Juwan Jennings continued and went out and had the best game of his career. The happy thing we can be looking back on, the thing that we can be stoked about, that we can hang our hat on, is it did everything that was left to be done for Brock Purdy to be taken seriously, in my mind. that was like the only thing you could ask left, right? He had to do it without Christian McCaffrey. He had to do it without Deebo Samuel. He had to do it without George Kittle. That's a big ask. And he went out there and he did it. He really balled out and played one of the best games he's ever played. So I'm going to give massive credit to Brock Purdy for what he did and for the leadership he's showing, how he handled post-game, all of that. I mean, massive respect for the guy. And if there's any positive we're taking out of it, that let the guy get paid because he is the franchise quarterback. He is the future. I truly believe that. I'm excited about it. And you know what? I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. There's a little bit of like doubt in me, but I'm still going to say it. What a time to be alive.